All in Sports Network. We love sports.
It is Tuesday, July 22nd, right here on your daily fix for all things Texas Longhorns. I'm Tanner Carlson. That is Jake Jimerson, and this is All In Horns. Today's episode, we're going to be going through the Texas wide receiver pass catchers. That includes a tight end, and we're basically going to go one at a time. We're going to talk a little bit about what their season could look like, and we're going to give over-unders on receptions, on yards, on touchdowns, on just about every wide receiver that we think is going to get any type of significant playing time throughout the season. And so, yeah, let's go ahead and let's just jump right into it. Jake, first of all, we both think that these wide receivers, if you haven't gone by and watched the last two episodes, we did a part 1 and part 2 series of power ranking the position groups. Wide receiver wasn't the highest position group either one of us ranked. And so I do think, however, there is some boom potential within this group, whether that be DeAndre Moore, Ryan Wingo, Jack Andres, Emmett Mosley, the transfer from Stanford. There's some big boom potential within this group. There could also be some bust potential as well. And so we're gonna kind of dive into that, and we'll give our over-unders. I'll kind of meteorate it and let Jake kind of take the reins of his over-unders, and then I'll kind of go in and I will give my take on it as well. So, Jake, let's go ahead. We're going to start with DeAndre Moore, the senior coming back for his final year at Texas. I'm going to give last year's stats, okay? So he was 39 receptions, 456 yards, and 7 touchdown, fourth option for the Texas Longhorns. Soon became a third option, but he started the year off lower on the depth chart. I've got him as being the number 1, number 2 guy on this team between he and Ryan Wingo, whoever's going to take those reins. 59 and a half receptions, 1,000 yards, 9.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, this wasn't one that was tough for me. You did a good job because these aren't lines from a sports book or anything.
No, these are I just made these up.
Yeah, no, if they're not sponsoring us, we're not taking their lines. So no. That is a hard line we make here. But I think this is a pretty good line just because I think DeAndre Moore is pretty much for sure going to have a big season. If you remember, he had a really big game against Mississippi State. When Arch Manning was the starter, they obviously connected on the a couple deep balls.
Yeah.
And so you feel pretty good that he's going to have a big year. I went ahead and went under just because I do think we're going to have a wide receiver well over 1,000 yards. I just think it's going to be someone else. But I do think DeAndre Moore, this is going to be down to the final game. And when I look at these stats, I think of it more from the regular season perspective than adding in the postseason because there's so much uncertainty in how many games you could get in a postseason. So he very well could end up with over 1,000 yards. I think the 9.5 touchdowns is probably about right. I think he'll end up around 9-10 touchdowns. And then yardage wise, I'd be surprised if he isn't in the 900s. I just didn't pick him to go over 1,000 because I don't think they'll have 2 wide receivers over 1,000 yards.
I mean, we could have a Joe Burrow LSU 2019 type season with these guys. You know,
let's maybe not make that leap and get people murdering us in the comments for comparing it to Jamar Chase and to literally 2 of the best wide receivers in the NFL and one of the top 3-4 quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah. But so here's how I did this too. And people might be like, wow, you're getting a wide receiver that had 39, 456, and 7 last year and pushing him up to 1,000 yards. No, I push it up to being where the wide receiver 1 for last year's team was, and Matthew Golden's stats is kind of where I push those numbers to because he's going to be taking that role. And he's going to have what I think is going to be a more prolific and efficient quarterback and Arch Manning running this offense. That's not going to be using as many dump offs to tight ends and to running backs. And so I kind of got those numbers based on kind of averaging what the top wide receiver for Steve Sarkisian's offenses look like. And so he's going to be one of the top 2 guys along with Ryan Wingo. Jake, Ryan Wingo last year went 29 receptions, 472 yards, but only 2 touchdowns. I've got him set at 54 and a half receptions, 900 yards, 7.5 touchdowns.
Yeah. First, real quick on the DeAndre Moore, he did have 4 catches, 104 yards, 2 touchdowns in the Mississippi State game where Arch Manning started.
Yeah.
So that also, just to back up your reasoning for jumping up those stats so much, just look at the game he had. And also to kind of jump onto this Wingo thing, I think the wide receiver production this year is going to be much higher from Texas, because you look at, small sample size, but I'm going to use the Mississippi State game since that was against SEC competition in Arch's first start. Isaiah Bond had 5 catches, 74 yards in that game. Matthew Golden had 5 catches, 52 yards in that game. And then you obviously had DeAndre Moore with 104 yards. You had Jonte Cook in that game with 31 yards. And if you remember, that should have been about 80 to 90 yards because he dropped a wide open deep touchdown.
With the touchdown. Yeah.
And so the wide receiver yardage in that game could have been ridiculous if not for some drop passes. And so this is who I think is going to go well over 1,000 yards. I think he could get 12 to 1,300 yards this year. I think Wingo is going to be, when it's all said and done at season end, they will be talking about him going into his final season of college the following season when he's a junior as being a for sure first round pick. I think he has one of the
wide
best
receiver
seasons.
class. This wide receiver class and a couple Jeremiah Smith. You're going to have Ryan Williams and Ryan Wingo as possibly your top 3 guys in the 2027 draft.
I mean, Williams and Jeremiah Smith are already locked in as probably top 10 picks for sure, I would say. And Wingo could easily work his way into top 10, top 15. He has the talent to do so. And I think he'll start to show that this year. So I'm going over, and I'm going over on everything. Over on receptions, over on yards, over on touchdowns. And I don't think it's going to be particularly close.
I think he's also going to be a 1,000-yard receiver, Jake. I think he could actually have less receptions than DeAndre Moore and have more yards and possibly have more touchdowns. I think DeAndre Moore is going to do a lot of his work kind of mid-range to the underneath stuff, where Ryan Wingo is going to be more of a deeper threat, big play guy, or he's going to be quick little screen RPO game and he's going to take it 40 yards down the field. He's just that caliber of guy. And so he might have less receptions than a DeAndre Moore, but I think he could possibly end his season with a lot more yards and more touchdowns as well.
Yeah, he has all the big play potential written on him. I mean, when he did get catches last year, it always felt like it was a big play. I think at the A&M game where he had a really big play. And I think he'll get involved in the screen game as well as some of those misdirection plays that we love to watch, and Sark loves to draw up. I watched that Florida play, by the way, the triple fake reverse toss counter GT spider 2 wide banana. I watched that this week randomly about 5 times. So
love it. We came up with the name for that. We need to go back and watch the tape of what we named that play.
It was a good one. I can't remember
what it was either. But all right, Jake, Jack Andres. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a line for the tight end. I know he's somebody you and I are both very excited about. At Cal last year, he was 56 receptions, 623 yards, and 2 touchdowns. At Texas, just because, again, Arch Manning is more of a wide receiver-based quarterback from what we've seen. I gave him 50 and a half receptions, 700 yards, 5.5 touchdowns.
I'm going to over on this. I think the yardage could be roughly correct. I could see him in the mid 700s, even into the 800s. I think that reception number will be a little higher, and I think the touchdown number is also about right. I think around 5 to 6 touchdowns makes sense.
Yeah.
But I'm taking the over just because I think he provides a vertical threat. Sarkisian is really good at scheming tight ends open. And I think he'll form a good connection with Arch as the year goes on. And I think people will start to key in on wide receivers. And if there's a couple safeties deep, if it's a game where maybe the run game isn't working and you got to start taking some stuff underneath, I think Arch will go to the tight end before he'll go to dump offs to the running back.
Yeah. No, Jake, I think I think he's somebody that's going to actually go high reception number. I think he'll get over what he got last year, even despite the amount of wide receivers that are on this roster. I could see the yardage kind of being a 650, 700 range. And then touchdowns are a hard one because guys can just always feel like they're doing things on the field, but then it just never results in the end zone. But I could see him being a fantastic red zone threat. So at the same time, I could see him being like 10 touchdowns and then him have like 50 receptions or something. Like 1 out of every 5 catches goes for a touchdown.
I think he could have a lot of touchdowns with that seam route that Gunnar Helm had a lot of success with, that Sanders had a lot of success with, and that I trust Arch Manning to throw on a rope. I think that seam route could be deadly when they get to that 30 to 40 yard yard line range. I think that he could get a lot of touchdowns there. And then we'll just kind of have to see how the red zone works out. But I imagine him running a corner route, an out route, a drag over the middle with his speed and his hands, and his play after the catch. He could be a guy that ends up with 10, 11 touchdowns. But like you said, touchdowns are a weird stat just because you get brought down at the one and the running back gets the touchdown. You don't score that touchdown, but you kind of did.
You kind of did, right?
Unless you're playing against the Texas defense, then you get stopped at the 1 yard line.
That's typically how it works. Ask Clemson, ask Texas A&M. All right. The transfer from Stanford, the sophomore coming in, Emmett Mosley, Jake, last year had 48 receptions, 525 yards, 6 touchdowns. He played in 9 games as a freshman at Stanford. I have his line at 50.5 receptions, 750 yards, 6.5 touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm going the under here mainly for the yardage. I think receptions probably more around 45. The yardage, I think he'll be more in that 6 to 650 range. Touchdowns, I actually think he could go over. I think he's going to be a big red zone threat.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have so much attention on Wingo, on the running backs, and even on Andres that he's going to kind of be the person that gets lost in the shuffle from the defense. And so I think he'll have a lot of catches in the red zone and be a really good red zone threat. Part of the reason I say under on yardage is not because I don't think he's not capable of going over that yardage.
There's enough.
A law of balances at some point with this. And I think Andres will be that third leading receiver when it's all said and done on this team. And then I think Mosley will be very shortly behind him. But yeah, I think I'll go over on touchdowns. I wish I could say push on receptions. I guess I'll go slightly under on receptions and a little bit under on yardage. Yeah, he'll go around that 45 to 50 in catches and around the 6 to 650 in yardage.
Yeah. No, I thought that it was I do think the yards might be a little, but man, I was just thinking, I was like, golly, he had 525 in that Stanford offense in 9 games. Why couldn't he go 750? But then again, at the same time, he wasn't sharing the rock with Ryan Wingo and DeAndre Moore and Jack Andres. And then plus the 3-4 running backs that are going to be on a constant rotation in the backfield that Sark loves to get involved as well. So I could kind of see his numbers staying very similar to what he did at Stanford, but also he's the unknown of like, even if he brings us if he brings us what he brought at Stanford, Jake, if he went 48, 525 and 6 touchdowns in a full season at Texas, I'd be thrilled with that production based on what I'm expecting the other guys to do as well.
Yeah. I mean, Jordan Whittington never put up insane numbers. And I think that will be his role this year on this team, because he's just not needed for more unless there's injuries. Then his numbers could skyrocket, of course. But I think he'll do a lot of dirty work and he'll be a fan favorite. But maybe the numbers won't look as outrageous as they could, just because there's only one football and only one guy can catch it most of the time.
And that's where it comes to the rest of these guys. All right, so the rest of these guys, Jake, we don't have previous seasons with them. So Khalil Lockett, 5-star wide receiver, 25.5 receptions, 400 yards, 2.5 touchdowns. What do we think?
I'm going under on this. I think there's only one freshman receiver I feel like that I actually think will be the best next year and get the most playing time just based off some of the reading into the spring. But like you said, these are unknowns. I just think Lockett might be one of those guys who ends up being a little bit more of a redshirt just because I think he projects as more of an outside receiver. And I think breaking into that outside wide receiver rotation, Sark has proven that you have to be proven, and learning that playbook and being able to block and all those things makes it really hard to break into that outside wide receiver rotation. So I have the under here.
Yeah, I agree, Jake. I looked at these numbers and I even thought maybe all of those are too high, but and I could see Khalil Lockett not getting a whole lot of reps kind of mid to late season. We may not hear from him a lot. Kind of just like you said, it's been proven in Stark's system that he really does like the experienced guys that know exactly what they need to do. Could it be the opposite? Could we go Khalil Lockett, not very many reps and not a lot of rotation at the beginning of the year? Then towards the end of the year, it's like, hey, check out Khalil Lockett. He's kind of coming on here at the end of the year. It could absolutely be that. And I almost hope it's the latter than it is the front part of it. I just say he'll get more playing time at the beginning of the year because you've got Sam Houston State, you've got San Jose State, and you've got what's the other non-conference that's not Ohio State? There's a third one in there. I want to say Rice, but I don't think it's Rice.
San Jose State. And why am I blanking on that? I'll find it while you.
But anyway, so I would also say under with Khalil Lockett. Michael Terry, 15.5 receptions, 200 yards, 1.5 touchdowns on the season. Jake, I think I would also go and lean kind of where I think you're going to go is probably on the under with Michael Terry.
UTEP is the other one.
I knew there's another Texas school in there thrown in there somewhere.
Yeah. I'm going under. I think Michael Terry's going to be a redshirt this year. I
feel like he's been kind of the less of the three between Khalil Lockett, Jamie French, and Michael Terry. I feel like he's kind of been on the bottom of that list.
And I think part of it is they want him to be a multifaceted tool on the offense. And that means learning the playbook at multiple positions. It's just going to be more of a learning curve for him. And he has, a little bit of a growth physically to do as well. And so I think Michael Terry's just going to end up being probably a for sure red shirt this year. And then we'll start to see more of him next year. So I like the under here as well.
Yeah. Jamie French, Jake, this is a guy that I really think that Jamie French could possibly work his way more so into a lineup within the slot receivers or whatever that might be against some of these smaller schools when Texas has the lead and is kind of getting into their depth. I think Jamie French would be somebody that may get some garbage time that we're going to be like, hey, there's Jamie French. Love that guy. Big time recruit. Looking forward to what he's doing. I've got him at 20 catches, 250 yards, 2.5 touchdowns.
I'm going under here. I think everyone can see which freshman I'm saying I think will be the boom out of this freshman class, at least in the first season. French kind of for similar reasons to Lockett. I do think he has a little bit more opportunity to possibly get into the slot. I just think he's a guy that unless he shows up to fall camp and is just rearing ready to go. And I think part of it, at least from what I've seen is getting the playbook down, which is really hard in Sark's system as a freshman wide receiver. And that is also a requirement. It's knowing the playbook and being able to block are two requirements to get on the field. So I just think getting on the field is going to be tough for him this year.
Yeah. Jake, let's just go ahead and knock out these next two. Parker Livingstone and Dylan McCutcheon. I have them both 10 receptions, 100 yards, half a touchdown. Over under.
Oh, I like triple this, like quadruple this over potentially. I think both these guys could be in the 400 plus range. I think Livingston, his name, when you see a guy's name mentioned over and over and over from practices and having a connection with Arch Manning, Livingston was right at the top of that list as being a guy that, and the fact that it was being a deep ball threat and a little bit of a burner. And Sark is going to want to use that because some people said he might be the fastest player on the team.
Yeah.
And I mean, Sark is going to use that, and he's got size, and supposedly he has a good connection with Arch Manning. I think he could be a dark horse to be a pretty regular and pretty big contributor for this offense. And McClutchin is the one that I have just consistently seen talked about out of the freshmen is the most ready to go. And when I read that, that tells me that he probably already has a little bit of a trust from Sarkisian. With wide receivers, for Sarkisian, trust is everything. He's got to trust, the playbook. And from what I've heard, it's clicking with him really quick. And then you got to have a connection with the quarterback. And I've also heard that was coming along quickly. I think McCutcheon will get the most playing time out of all the freshmen.
Don't be
which is
shocked.
funny because he's not the 5-star.
Yeah, don't be shocked when you see Parker Livingstone in the rotation before any of these other guys. That's my take. My take is when Emmett Mosley or Wingo or Moore need a break and they want out and they need to be rotated, don't be surprised when Parker Livingstone is the first guy up.
Yeah, right now I would be surprised if he wasn't. The only other guy I think that could be is McCutcheon, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, I love the over for both these guys. I think they could hit the over in a single game, maybe not in the receptions. And that's one thing is like especially Livingston, if he has 10 catches, he's going to have 200 yards. I think he's going to be that type of guy that's averaging 20 yards per play whenever he gets a catch.
Yeah.
Which is why I think he'll just soar over this over as well with touchdowns, because I think he's going to be due for a long bomb or two from Arch Manning.
Would love to see it. Would love to see it. I think that's one thing, Jake, that we don't know about Arch quite yet. Limited amount of time that we've seen him play in the starting role. But Quinn Ewers had, I think, 5 or 6 guys. What was that stat I threw at us at the end of the year where no other team had 6, I want to say 6 pass catchers, whether that be running back, tight end, or receiver, with 20 plus catches, over 500 yards, and multiple touchdowns, where Quinn Ewers, he did spread the ball around and he always had everybody involved, whether that be running backs, tight ends, receivers. We don't know really quite yet. We think Arch is going to be more so wide receiver centric, but we don't know how well he distributes the ball. Some of these wide receivers might put up big numbers throughout the season where we see the running back numbers really kind of tail off a little bit in terms of the receiving stats.
Yeah, I think tight end will stay similar to how it has. I think wide receivers will boom up, and I think running back yardage out of the backfield will drop off significantly.
Yeah.
That's kind of my early prediction on what the Arch Manning centric offense will look like.
It's the aura Arch gives off. He seems like a wide receiver.
He seems like he's going to try to take off and run it before he just dumps it off to the running back,
which I'm not opposed to be honest with you. I'm
a little opposed to it early in the season. I want him to stay healthy.
We don't need to do it.
I don't trust him to slide. I don't trust him to slide.
We don't need to do it against UTEP or anything, but if the game's on a line against a Georgia, yeah, I'm okay with players being as brave and ballsy as a Vince Young was, of like, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself. If it takes 20 rushing attempts to do this, then let's do that, and I know it's a different day and age where you've got your quarterbacks being paid. Well, Arch Manning getting paid $8 million in NIL deals and things like that off the field, and things are a little bit different. His body's worth a little bit more. But man, I think he has that mindset, that Josh Allen mindset of when it's game time, I don't care what my value is. I'm getting a first down and put my head down.
Yeah, just think about the Bills coaches and be like, no, we tell him not to do that shit all the time. Yeah. He says, okay, I'll work on it. Then he gets on the field and then it just happens.
Yep.
That's going to be, I feel like Arch Manning is going to be like that. And it's going to be like, why are you trucking a dude against UTEP? And it's like,
it's in his DNA. He can't help himself.
Yeah. He's just a competitor, which you love, but also if he gets hurt, you hate.
And it's a little scary. So, all right, Jake, that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a fun thing for us to do. So I hope everybody listening did it. I mean, what else are you listening to in the summertime? I mean,
drop your own predictions in the comments.
Yeah. Let us know if the lines are again, if any of the line sites, the gambling sites, want to sponsor this show and give us their lines and we can announce their lines and give promo codes, any of them, we'll do that as well. But they'll come at a small price, very small price. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. I hope everybody enjoyed it. We'll be back on tomorrow. We drop these episodes Monday through Friday at noon each and every day. That's Jake Jimerson. I'm Tanner Carlson. As always, ladies and gentlemen, welcome.
All in Sports Network. We love sports.